I am Kiara. I am 35 years old. At my daughter's 6th birthday party, I walked into my parents' kitchen and found her custom birthday cake shoved headfirst into the trash can. My sister laughed and told me my child simply was not worth wasting cake on. I did not scream or argue. I picked up my little girl and walked out the front door. The very next morning, my mother called me sobbing, begging me to call the venue because they were canceling my sister's wedding. I simply said, honestly, I do not care, and hung up the phone. Before I share how I brought my toxic family's facade crumbling down around them, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family who treated you like a second-class citizen. Growing up in the affluent suburbs of Atlanta, my parents always obsessed over appearances. Our sprawling brick estate with its perfectly manicured lawns and grand circular driveway was a monument to their desperate need for social validation. Inside those heavy oak doors, however, the warmth was entirely artificial. I learned early on that love in the Addams household was a finite resource, and almost all of it was fiercely reserved for my younger sister Chantel. Today was supposed to be a rare exception. It was my daughter Maya's 6th birthday, and my mother Valerie had surprisingly offered to host a small afternoon gathering at their house. I should have known it was a trap, or at the very least an afterthought. I had spent weeks planning this day, saving up to order a beautiful custom cake decorated with delicate fondant butterflies, which were Maya's absolute favorite. I had carried that cake box into the house like it was made of fragile glass, and carefully placed it in the massive industrial refrigerator in the kitchen. 2 hours into the party, the children were running around the backyard, and it was finally time for cake. I walked into the kitchen, the sounds of joyous laughter echoing through the glass patio doors. I opened the heavy stainless steel refrigerator door, ready to pull out the masterpiece and light the candles. The shelf was completely empty. A cold, heavy knot formed in my stomach. I scanned the granite counters, the island, the walk-in pantry. Nothing. Then I caught a glimpse of bright pink frosting smeared against the rim of the stainless steel trash can. I stepped closer, my heart dropping into my shoes. There, shoved headfirst among discarded coffee grounds, wet paper towels, and empty packaging, was Maya's beautiful butterfly cake. The delicate decorations were crushed, the cake completely ruined. I stood frozen, trying to process the sheer cruelty of what I was looking at. The swinging kitchen door pushed open, and Chantel sauntered in. She leaned against the marble island, casually swirling a mimosa in her crystal glass. At 28, Chantel was the family's undisputed golden child, a former pageant queen who had never worked a single day in her life, coasting entirely on our parents' money and her own manufactured charm. She looked at me, then followed my horrified gaze to the trash can, and a smug, unapologetic smirk spread across her face. She was not worth wasting cake on, Chantel said, taking a slow sip of her drink. I needed the fridge space to chill the imported champagne for my bridal shower tomorrow. The bottles are huge, Kiara. You know how it is. I stared at her, the sheer audacity of her words ringing in my ears. She had deliberately destroyed a 6-year-old's birthday cake for champagne. Before I could even formulate a response to this incredible display of selfishness, the kitchen door swung open again. My mother Valerie breezed in, wearing her pristine tennis whites, fresh from her morning match at the country club. I pointed to the trash can, my voice trembling with suppressed rage, demanding to know why my daughter's cake had been thrown away like garbage. Instead of reprimanding Chantel, my mother sighed heavily, looking at me with her familiar disdain. Kiara, please do not start your usual drama, she said casually, adjusting her diamond tennis bracelet. Maya is just a child. She will not remember having some silly cake. Your sister's wedding to Connor is next month. Marrying into the Sterling family is elevating our entire legacy in this city. She is under immense stress, and you need to be more accommodating to her needs. The words hit me like a physical blow, yet they were entirely consistent with 35 years of history. This was the same woman who had flatly refused to co-sign my student loans, forcing me to work 3 grueling jobs to fund my own way through my historically Black university. Meanwhile, They had gleefully mortgaged this very house to buy Chantel a brand new Mercedes for her high school graduation and fund a lavish lifestyle she had never earned. I was the dark-skinned, fiercely independent, difficult older sister who had to bleed for every inch of ground I stood on. Chantel was the delicate princess who was currently securing their ultimate social prize by marrying Connor, a wealthy white man from a prominent old money family. In my mother's eyes, my daughter's joy was a completely acceptable sacrifice for Chantel's convenience. In the past, I would have screamed. I would have argued until my throat was raw, trying desperately to make them understand my pain, trying to force them to love me and my daughter the way they loved Chantel. But standing in that cold, beautiful kitchen, looking at the ruined pink frosting and my mother's dismissive face, the final thread tying me to this toxic family simply snapped. Words were wasted on people who were utterly committed to misunderstanding you. I did not raise my voice. I did not shed a single tear. I quietly pulled the ruined cake box from the trash and set it on the counter. "Enjoy your champagne," I said softly. "Have a wonderful life." I walked out of the kitchen and into the bright sunlight of the backyard. Maya was giggling, playing tag with a cousin. I knelt down, smoothed her hair, and gently told her it was time to go. She looked confused but took my hand obediently. We walked through the grand living room past my father Tyrone, who was watching a golf tournament and did not even look up to say goodbye. We walked out the heavy oak front doors and down the sweeping driveway. I felt a profound sense of finality with every step. I was closing the door on my family, forever choosing my peace and my daughter's dignity over their endless cycle of emotional abuse. I reached my car and carefully buckled Maya into her car seat. I promised her we were going straight to the best bakery in downtown Atlanta to pick out the biggest, most chocolate-filled cake they had. Her tears quickly turned back to bright smiles, her innocent resilience, a stark contrast to the cruelty we had just left behind. I closed her door and walked around to the driver's side, exhaling a long, shaky breath. Just as I settled into the driver's seat and started the engine, my phone vibrated intensely in my purse. I pulled it out, fully expecting an angry text from my mother blaming me for ruining the afternoon. Instead, the screen displayed a high-priority automated security alert from my holding company's secure server. I stared at the notification, my blood running completely cold. The alert read, "Urgent. Unauthorized signature detected on the Grand Magnolia Wedding Gala contract. $150,000 owner's family comp applied. Pending immediate review." I sat frozen in the driver's seat, the engine humming quietly around me. The Grand Magnolia was the most exclusive, sought-after wedding venue in the entire South, boasting sprawling botanical gardens, crystal ballrooms, and a waitlist over a year long. My family believed I was just a struggling mid-level event coordinator making a modest salary in the corporate events world. I let them believe that because it kept them from asking me for money. They had absolutely no idea that I was the silent founder and majority owner of Lumina Hospitality Group, the parent company that owned the Grand Magnolia outright. I had purchased the historic property 3 years ago when it was a dilapidated estate and poured millions into restoring it into the premier destination for Atlanta's elite. Chantel had been boasting for months about securing the venue, bragging to everyone about how Connor's family deserved nothing less than the absolute best. I had deliberately kept my ownership a secret, telling the venue management to treat her like any other client. Now I understood how she had managed to secure a booking that typically required a massive deposit she could never afford. My sister and my parents had not just trashed my little girl's birthday cake. In their desperate attempt to secure a luxury wedding they could not actually afford, they had stolen my identity. They had forged my signature to apply a massive family discount, assuming my bosses would just blindly approve a massive comp without verifying it with me. They had committed felony fraud in my name. A slow, chilling realization washed over me as I looked back at the imposing brick facade of my parents' house. They thought I was weak. They thought I was a failure they could discard and use at their convenience. They had no idea they had just handed me the exact weapon I needed to destroy their entire world. I stare at the stainless steel trash can, watching the bright pink buttercream frosting melt into the wet, dark sludge of morning coffee grounds. My hands rest firmly at my sides. I do not scream. I do not throw my purse across the marble island. I do not reach out and snatch the crystal mimosa glass from Chantel's perfectly manicured fingers. Years of being the designated family scapegoat have taught me a bitter but invaluable lesson. Words are wasted in this house. Any reaction, any display of genuine hurt or righteous anger will only be weaponized against me. They will call me aggressive. They will call me jealous. They will spin the narrative to make me the angry, difficult, dark-skinned older sister who is trying to ruin the golden child's bridal shower. I refuse to play my assigned role in their toxic script today. My mother, Valerie, stands beside the refrigerator in her pristine white tennis skirt, her arms crossed, waiting for me to explode. She wants the fight. She wants the justification to push me out so Chantel can have the entire house for her champagne delivery. I deny her the satisfaction. I slowly reach into the trash can, careful to avoid the discarded food scraps, and pull out the crushed cardboard bakery box. The beautiful fondant butterflies I spent weeks designing with the pastry chef are mangled beyond recognition. It breaks my heart for Maya, but I keep my face completely blank. I turn on my heel and walk out of the kitchen without uttering a single syllable. Behind me, I can hear Chantel's scoff whispering something to our mother about my attitude, but the sound fades as I cross the threshold into the expansive sunlit living room. The entire house is a monument to my parents' desperate need for social validation. Vaulted ceilings, imported chandeliers, and rented modern art cover the walls. It is a hollow display of wealth they can barely afford, funded entirely by their dangerous obsession with keeping up appearances. My father, Tyrone, is sitting in his leather recliner staring at a golf tournament on the massive flat-screen television. He does not even glance in my direction. He does not ask where the birthday cake is. He does not care. Maya is sitting on the plush rug near the bay windows, quietly playing with a set of wooden blocks. She looks up at me with her big, trusting brown eyes, wearing the little pink tulle dress she picked out specifically for today. My chest tightens with a fierce, protective love. I kneel down beside her, keeping my voice soft and steady. I tell her it is time for us to go, to... She tilts her head, her braids falling over her shoulder. "But what about the cake, Mommy?" she asks innocently. We did not sing happy birthday yet. I swallow the sharp lump in my throat. I force a bright, reassuring smile onto my face. I promise her that we are going to go on a special adventure to the best bakery in downtown Atlanta, and she can pick out the biggest, most chocolate-filled cake in the entire display case. Her eyes light up instantly. She drops the blocks and grabs my hand, her disappointment vanishing with the resilient joy only a 6-year-old can muster. I stand up, holding her small hand firmly in mine. I look toward the hallway where my mother has just emerged from the kitchen, waiting for the final showdown. I look at my father, who finally mutes the television and turns his head. I hold my head high, projecting an aura of absolute calm. "Enjoy your champagne," I say, my voice carrying clearly across the quiet room. "Have a wonderful life." I do not wait for their response. I guide Maya to the heavy oak front doors, push them open, and step out into the suffocating humidity of the Atlanta afternoon. The heavy door clicks shut behind us, severing my ties to the Addams family household. I walk down the sweeping brick driveway toward my car, focusing entirely on the sound of the gravel crunching beneath my shoes and the warm pressure of my daughter's hand. I open the rear door of my SUV and gently lift Maya into her car seat. She hums a little song to herself as I carefully snap the heavy buckles into place, completely unaware of the massive familial fracture that has just occurred. I brush a kiss against her forehead, close her door, and walk around to the driver's side. I slide behind the steering wheel and close my eyes for a fraction of a second. I let out a long, shaky breath, allowing the adrenaline to slowly ebb from my bloodstream. Before I can shift the car into drive, my phone begins to vibrate violently inside my purse. I assume it is Valerie calling to berate me for walking out, or to complain about my lack of respect for Chantel's upcoming wedding. I pull the phone out, fully intending to block her number right then and there. Instead, the screen illuminates with a high-priority automated security alert from my corporate holding company's secure server. I stare at the bold red text on the screen, my brow furrowing in confusion. The notification reads, "Urgent. Unauthorized signature detected on the Grand Magnolia Wedding Gala contract. $150,000 owner's comp applied, pending immediate review." The air in the car suddenly feels incredibly thin. I read the notification a second time, then a third, my mind racing to process the magnitude of those two sentences. The Grand Magnolia is the most exclusive, fiercely sought-after wedding venue in the entire South. It boasts sprawling manicured botanical gardens, a historic mansion converted into a crystal ballroom, and a waitlist that stretches well over a year. My family, locked in their own delusions of grandeur, firmly believes I am just a struggling mid-level event coordinator making a modest salary in the corporate events world. I let them believe that narrative because it keeps them from constantly asking me for money. They have absolutely no idea that I am the silent founder, CEO, and majority owner of Lumina Hospitality Group, the parent company that owns the Grand Magnolia outright. I purchased the historic property 3 years ago when it was a dilapidated estate. I poured millions of my own hard-earned capital into restoring it, transforming it into the premier destination for Atlanta's elite. Chantel has been boasting for months about miraculously securing the venue for her wedding to Connor Sterling. She bragged to everyone in our social circle about how Connor's old money-wealthy white family deserved nothing less than the absolute best the city had to offer. I had deliberately kept my ownership a secret, explicitly telling my venue management team to treat her like any other demanding client and to charge her the full premium rate. I sit in the quiet, air-conditioned cabin of my car, piecing the puzzle together. I know exactly how much the Sterling wedding package costs. $150,000. It is a premium, all-inclusive weekend buyout of the entire estate. I also know my parents' financial reality. They remortgaged their home twice just to keep up appearances and fund Chantel's designer lifestyle. They do not have $150,000 to spend on a venue. Now, looking at the security alert on my screen, I understand exactly how Chantel managed to bypass the massive required deposit. My sister and my father had not just trashed my little girl's birthday cake. In their desperate, pathetic attempt to secure a luxury wedding they could never afford, they had completely bypassed the standard booking department. They had accessed the corporate authorization forms, likely using a forged email or stolen employee credentials, and they had forged my signature. They had applied a 100% owner's family comp to the contract. They assumed I was just a low-level employee with minor administrative access. They assumed my bosses would see the Adams name, see my forged signature, and just blindly approve a massive corporate comp without ever verifying it directly with me. They had committed felony fraud in my name. A slow, chilling realization washes over me as I look back through my tinted window at the imposing brick facade of my parents' house. They truly believed I was weak. They believed I was a failure they could comfortably discard, humiliate, and use at their absolute convenience. They thought I was a stepping stone for Chantel's glorious ascent into high society. They had no idea they had just handed me the exact weapon I needed to destroy their entire world. The hurt over the ruined birthday cake evaporates, replaced instantly by a cold, calculating, and ruthless business clarity. I put the car in drive and pull out of the estate. I am going to buy my daughter the best cake in the city. And then I am going to tear my family's fraudulent empire down to the studs. The morning sunlight pours through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown penthouse, casting a warm golden glow across the imported quartz countertops of my kitchen. I am standing in my silk robe, pouring a bowl of honey nut cereal for Maya, who is happily swinging her legs from one of the modern bar stools. The sheer quiet of my sanctuary is a sharp contrast to the suffocating tension I left behind at my parents' estate yesterday afternoon. Maya is humming happily, her face smeared with a bit of leftover chocolate frosting from the massive cake we devoured last night. We are safe, we are at peace. We are at. Then the sharp, jarring ring of my cell phone shatters the morning calm. I glance at the screen resting next to my coffee mug. The caller ID flashes with my mother's name, Valerie. I consider ignoring it, letting it ring out to voicemail, but a cold curiosity grips me. The automated fraud alert I received yesterday afternoon meant my security team at Lumina Hospitality Group had immediately locked down the forged contract. I want to hear exactly how my family plans to spin this disaster. I press accept and lift the phone to my ear, not bothering with a greeting. Instantly, the sound of hysterical, wet sobbing floods the speaker. Kiara, you have to fix this. Valerie wails, her voice trembling with manufactured panic. You have to fix this right now. Please call the venue. There has been a horrible, catastrophic mistake. They just sent an automated email saying they are canceling your sister's wedding. I sip my black coffee, my eyes locked on the sprawling Atlanta skyline outside my window. My mother has absolutely no idea that she is speaking to the CEO of the company that just flagged her for felony fraud. In her mind, I am still the lowly corporate event coordinator who scrapes by on a meager salary, someone who might just have enough low-level industry contacts to smooth over a supposedly clerical error. She actually expects me to leverage my professional reputation to save the very event they tried to steal from me. Are you listening to me, Kiara? Valerie cries out, her breath hitching dramatically. You know people in this industry. You know how these booking systems work. Call the manager at the Grand Magnolia immediately. Tell them Chantel is your sister, and they need to reinstate the contract. Connor's mother is flying in from London next week for the final tasting. If this wedding falls apart, our family is ruined. Please. I listened to the desperation in her voice. Yesterday, my daughter's tears meant absolutely nothing to her. Maya's ruined birthday cake was simply collateral damage in the grand pursuit of chilling imported champagne for Chantel. Now when her golden child's social climbing is threatened, the tears flow like a river. The hypocrisy is so thick it practically chokes the air in the room. I do not raise my voice. I do not ask her why the venue was cancelled, deliberately withholding the fact that I already hold the forged contract in my secure corporate files. I simply speak with icy, unwavering precision. Honestly, I do not care. I pull the phone away from my ear and press the red button, cutting off her theatrical gasps. I set the device face down on the counter and turn back to Maya, offering her a bright smile as I hand her a glass of orange juice. For exactly 10 seconds, the penthouse returns to its tranquil state. Then the phone violently vibrates against the quartz. Valerie is calling back. This time when I answer, the sobbing is entirely gone. The victim routine has vanished in the blink of an eye, replaced by the vicious, venomous rage I know all too well. How dare you hang up on me? Valerie screams, her voice echoing shrilly from the speaker. You did this, you spiteful, vindictive woman. You could not handle the fact that Chantel put you in your place yesterday, so you called someone at that venue and made up lies to sabotage her. The leap in her twisted logic is staggering. She genuinely believes I am a jealous sibling trying to ruin a contract out of petty spite, completely blind to the fact that her husband forged a $150,000 corporate comp. She does not wait for me to defend myself. She launches into a tirade that exposes every ugly classist insecurity she harbors in her soul. You are just bitterly jealous, she spits out her words, dripping with absolute disgust. You are a miserable single mother living paycheck to paycheck, and you cannot stand the fact that your sister is marrying a wealthy white man. You cannot stomach that she is marrying into the Sterling family and securing a future of wealth and privilege that you could never even dream of achieving. Her voice grows louder, more frantic as she paces around what I can only assume is her meticulously decorated living room. You are deliberately trying to ruin our family's social standing in Atlanta's elite circles. You want to drag Chantel down to your pathetic level because you have failed at everything you have ever attempted. You are a disgrace to this family, Kiara. You will call that venue right now and fix whatever lie you told them, or I swear to God you will never step foot in our house again. I let her finish. I let her exhaust the very last drop of her toxic breath. Every hateful word she screams only solidifies the concrete wall I have built around my heart. She thinks the threat of banishing me from their home is a punishment. She does not realize it is the greatest gift she could ever give me. I look at my beautiful daughter safe and happy in her own world, and I know exactly what needs to be done. I do not defend my success. I do not tell her about the multi-million-dollar company I built from the ground up while she mocked my ambitions. I do not scream back. I just pull the phone away from my face, tap the red button to end the call, and swiftly navigate to her contact profile. With one satisfying tap, I permanently block her number. I block my father's number. I block Chantel's number. The silence that follows is exquisite. I finish my coffee, rinse the mug in the sink, and help Maya wipe the milk from her chin. It is time to get her dressed for school, and more importantly, it is time for me to go to the office. The time for silent exits has officially passed. Now it is time to unleash the real consequences. After ensuring Maya has her backpack and a tightly packed lunch, I walk her to the heavy glass doors of her private elementary school. I kneel down, smoothing her uniform collar, and give her a fierce, lingering hug, promising her that today is going to be a fantastic day. I watch her run inside, greeted warmly by her teachers, and I feel a profound sense of protective clarity wash over me. My daughter will never grow up feeling like a secondary character in her own life, not as long as I am breathing. I walk back to my car, slide behind the wheel, and merge onto the bustling Atlanta highway, pointing my vehicle toward the upscale business district of Buckhead. For the past 5 years, my family has completely bought into a carefully constructed narrative I allowed them to believe. They think I am a mid-level event coordinator at a generic planning agency, someone who answers phones, organizes catering menus, and barely scrapes together enough money to pay rent each month. They view my independence as a charming but ultimately pathetic struggle, a rebellion that left me struggling while Chantel flourished. They have no idea that the modest sedan I drive to their house is a deliberate choice, just like the understated clothes I wear around them to avoid their endless probing questions about money. The truth is entirely different. I am the silent founder, CEO, and majority shareholder of Lumina Hospitality Group. We own and operate 5 of the most lucrative luxury properties in the state. Our crown jewel is the Grand Magnolia, the exact venue Chantel has been publicly bragging about securing for her high society wedding. It is a stunning historic property, featuring sprawling botanical gardens, imported crystal chandeliers, and an exclusive clientele list that includes celebrities, elite politicians, and old money families. I bought it as a crumbling, forgotten estate, poured my own capital into a massive renovation, and turned it into a multi-million-dollar gold mine. My family simply assumed Chantel had charmed her way into a booking or that Connor's family had pulled strings. They never knew they were walking straight into my territory. I pull into my reserved spot in the secure underground parking garage of the Lumina corporate high-rise. The moment I step out of the private elevator and onto the executive floor, the lingering toxicity of my family completely vanishes. I am no longer Kiara, the difficult dark-skinned disappointment. I am Kiara Washington, the undisputed boss. I walk past the sleek reception desk, nodding to my staff, and head straight for my corner office with its panoramic floor-to-ceiling views of the Atlanta skyline. My operations director, Jasmine, is already waiting for me at my mahogany conference table. Jasmine is razor-sharp, relentlessly efficient, and ferociously protective of our company. She has a thick manila folder resting in front of her, and her expression is unusually grim. We do not exchange pleasantries. I set my bag down, take the leather executive chair opposite her, and ask to see the contract. Jasmine slides the heavy file across the polished wood. She explains that the automated security system flagged the document late yesterday afternoon when a junior booking agent tried to process it into the main ledger. I open the folder, my eyes scanning the meticulously itemized contract. It is the Platinum Magnolia package, our most expensive and exclusive offering. It includes a complete weekend buyout of the estate premium Beluga caviar service, towering imported white orchid arrangements, a private string quartet, custom ice sculptures, and unlimited access to the property's vintage wine cellar. The grand total sits boldly at the bottom of the page, $150,000. But that is not what triggered the security alert. I look closely at the payment breakdown section. Instead of a standard 50% deposit, there is a bold, handwritten addendum scrawled across the payment terms. It reads 100% owner's family comp. I stare at the signatures at the bottom of the page. They're executed with absolute arrogance are the signatures of my sister Chantel and my father Tyrone. Right next to them on the line designated for corporate authorization is a signature that is supposed to be mine. It is a sloppy, desperate forgery. They had clearly taken a piece of mail or an old greeting card I had sent them, traced my handwriting, and slapped it onto a legally binding corporate document. Jasmine watches me carefully as I study the forgery, her arms crossed tight against her chest. She tells me that the contract was slipped into a stack of routine administrative approvals that the venue's front desk processes every single day. The breathtaking audacity of their plan becomes crystal clear as I trace my father's heavy pen strokes. My father and sister assumed I was just a low-level employee with minor administrative privileges. They figured they could bypass the normal booking channels, forge my name, to apply a massive employee family discount and slip the paperwork into the general system. They arrogantly thought that my so-called bosses would see a venue coordinator's signature and simply push the discount through as a professional courtesy without ever verifying the massive comp with me directly. Or worse, they assumed that once the wedding was locked into the system, I would be too terrified of my father's explosive temper to report the fraud to upper management. Tyrone operates entirely on patriarchal intimidation. He genuinely thought he could bully me into covering for them, forcing me to quietly absorb the cost or risk losing my job to save the family from embarrassment. They wanted to exploit my supposed low-level position to steal $150,000 in premium luxury services all, so Chantel could impress her wealthy fiancé's mother and secure her place in high society. They honestly believed I was too weak, too desperate for their approval, and too compliant to stop them. I close the folder and rest my hands flat on the cool mahogany table. Jasmine asks me if we should immediately terminate the booking, lock them out of the system, and cancel the event outright. I look out the window at the sprawling city below, a slow, calculated smile touching the corners of my mouth. I tell her no. Canceling the wedding quietly would only allow them to spin a false narrative where they are the innocent victims. It would allow Chantel to cry to Connor about clerical errors or vindictive venue managers who ruined her special day. I will not give them the luxury of a quiet exit, nor will I let them paint me as the villain in their manufactured tragedy. I tap my finger against the forged contract, the blueprint for their absolute destruction, sitting right under my hand. I sit across from Jasmine, my operations director, listening to the steady hum of the city traffic through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of my executive office. The forged contract lies flat on the mahogany table between us. Jasmine looks at me, her professional composure barely masking her absolute shock. She knows the names on the document. She knows Chantel is the demanding bride who has been terrorizing our floral department for weeks. Now seeing my forged signature on the authorization line, Jasmine understands the deeply personal nature of this theft. She asks me if she should simply void the contract, delete the file from our system, and flag the clients for permanent refusal of service. It is the standard protocol for fraudulent bookings. I look at the sloppy forgery of my name, tracing the hurried ink strokes with my eyes. My family thought I was a pathetic, powerless, mid-level coordinator. They thought they could use my name to steal from a luxury corporation without any repercussions because they assumed I would be too terrified to speak up. They banked on my silence. They banked on my lifetime of submission. I lean back in my leather chair and fold my hands in my lap. I tell Jasmine that we are not going to void anything. We are not going to sweep this under the rug and let them quietly scramble for a cheaper venue. We are going to hold them exactly to the contract they signed. I instruct her to open a new email draft and copy our corporate legal counsel on the message. I dictate the terms with absolute icy clarity. We are issuing a formal, legally binding demand for the full $150,000 payment up front. We explicitly state that the 100% owner family compensation was flagged and rejected due to the fraudulent use of an employee's identity. We inform them that forging a corporate signature is a severe violation of our terms of service, and as a result, the standard payment schedule is completely nullified. They do not get to pay in installments. They do not get a grace period. I tell Jasmine to set a strict 48-hour deadline. If the full $150,000 is not wired directly into the Lumina Hospitality Group holding account by that exact time, the venue reservation is terminated. I make sure she adds one final devastating detail. If they fail to pay their premium spring weekend, will be immediately transferred to a high-paying tech executive who has been sitting on our waitlist for 14 months offering to pay double for a cancellation. Jasmine's fingers fly across her keyboard, typing out the most polite, professionally lethal demand letter I have ever authorized. As she works, I look out the window and think about my father, Tyrone. He has always viewed my boundaries as personal insults. When I was 19, he drained my modest savings account from my summer job to pay for Chantel's expensive pageant gowns. When I confronted him, he bellowed that I owed this family for putting a roof over my head and food in my stomach. He has spent his entire life believing that what is mine is actually his, and that I have absolutely no right to deny him. He believes he can reach into my life, take whatever he wants, and demand my gratitude in return. He thought he could do the exact same thing today. He thought he could reach into my corporate life, forge my name, and steal a luxury wedding. He has no idea that the company he is trying to defraud is entirely mine. He has no idea that he just stepped into an arena where his patriarchal bullying means absolutely nothing. Jasmine pauses her typing and looks up at me. She reads the final draft aloud. It is a masterpiece of corporate intimidation, completely stripped of any emotion, laying out the undeniable facts of their fraud and the massive financial penalty required to fix it. She asks me if I am absolutely sure I want to send this to my own father. I think about Maya crying in the car. I think about the ruined birthday cake shoved into the garbage. I tell Jasmine I have never been more certain of anything in my entire life. Jasmine hits the send button. The email vanishes from her screen, instantly transmitting to my father's primary business account. The trap is officially set. Now the ticking clock begins. I sit in the quiet calm of my office, sipping a fresh glass of sparkling water, waiting for the inevitable explosion. My family relies entirely on the illusion of wealth. I know for a fact that they have maxed out their credit limits and taken out predatory loans just to keep up with Connor's elite social circle. They do not have $150,000 sitting in a checking account. They literally cannot pay this demand. And without this venue, Chantel's carefully constructed facade of high society dominance will crumble instantly. 10 minutes pass. The silence in the executive suite is heavy thick with anticipation. Then the absolute chaos begins. A furious, violent pounding rattles the heavy glass doors of my executive suite. I hear the muffled, frantic voice of Sarah, our front desk receptionist, telling someone they cannot enter a restricted area without a security pass. Her protests are completely ignored. Heavy, aggressive footsteps stomp across the polished hardwood floors of the outer office. The heavy mahogany door to my private office flies open, hitting the wall with a loud crack. My father, Tyrone, pushes past the terrified receptionist, his massive frame filling the doorway. His face is flushed a deep, dangerous purple, and the veins in his neck are visibly bulging against the collar of his golf shirt. In his trembling fist, he is clutching a hastily printed copy of the cease and desist letter Jasmine just sent. He marches straight toward my desk, completely oblivious to the expensive surroundings, blinded by his own narcissistic rage. He assumes I am just a worker sitting in a borrowed office. He stops right in front of me, raises his fist, and slams it down onto my mahogany desk with enough force to make my coffee mug rattle. "You think you can play games with this family's future?" He bellows, his voice echoing violently off the glass walls. I do not flinch. I do not blink. I remain perfectly still in my leather executive chair, watching my father's face contort with a volatile, aggressive rage that used to send me running for cover when I was a child. The sparkling water inside my crystal glass ripples from the immense force of his fist, striking the mahogany wood, but I do not reach for it. I simply let him stand there, his chest heaving heavily beneath his cheap golf shirt, his aggressively applied cologne completely failing to mask the sour metallic stench of his own desperation. Jasmine, sitting across from me at the conference table, immediately pushes her chair back. Her hand hovers over the desk phone to summon building security, her eyes flashing with a fiercely protective anger. I raise a single finger silently signaling her to stop. I want this. I need to hear every single word he has to say. Tyrone leans forward, planting both of his heavy hands flat on my desk. He is deliberately trying to use his massive physical frame to cast a shadow over me. He wants me to feel small. He wants me to feel like the helpless, obedient teenager he could easily bully into total submission. He waves the crumpled printed copy of the demand letter right in my face, the paper shaking in his grip. You think you can send me a formal demand for $150,000? Tyrone roars, his voice carrying a raspy, guttural edge that bounces violently off the soundproof glass walls of my office. You think you can extort your own flesh and blood because you are harboring some pathetic, bitter grudge against your sister. You are nothing but a low-level event planner, Kiara. You answer phones and arrange napkins for people who actually matter. You are going to log into your little computer system right now, retract this ridiculous extortion letter, and process that venue compensation. I lean back in my chair, resting my elbows on the armrests and gracefully interlock my fingers. I let the silence stretch out, allowing the echo of his tantrum to die a pathetic death in the pristine air-conditioned room. And if I refuse, I ask, my voice barely above a whisper, yet slicing through the heavy tension with absolute authority. Tyrone scoffs a cruel, mocking sound that exposes his jagged teeth. If you refuse, I will end you. I will pick up my phone right now, and I will call the highest-ranking executives of Lumina Hospitality Group. I will demand to speak to your superiors. I will tell them that their bitter, insubordinate employee is trying to sabotage a premium client account out of sheer jealousy. I will have you fired before you can even pack up your desk. You will be blacklisted from every single event planning agency in Atlanta. I will make sure you are entirely unemployable. He stands up straight, puffing his chest out, and points a thick, trembling finger right at me. I broke my back for you. I sacrificed my youth, my money, and my energy to put food in your mouth and a roof over your head. You owe me everything you have. You owe this family your absolute loyalty. Chantel is marrying a Sterling. She is securing a future of extreme wealth that will elevate this entire family. She deserves a perfect wedding day, and you are going to facilitate it, or I will personally ruin your pathetic little career. He crosses his arms, waiting for me to apologize. He is waiting for the tears. He is waiting for the terrified compliance he trained into me for 2 decades. I look at the crumpled paper in his hand, then up at his flushed, sweating face. He is not a powerful patriarch. He is just a frightened, broke man, masquerading as a king, entirely dependent on a system of control that no longer exists. Are you quite finished? I ask calmly. Tyrone glares at me, his jaw tightening so hard I can hear his teeth grinding. I am waiting for you to fix this mess, Kiara. I slowly stand up from my chair. I smooth the front of my tailored silk blazer, projecting an aura of total, unshakable control. You talk about sacrifices, Tyrone. You talk about what I owe this family. I step around the massive mahogany desk, slowly closing the distance between us. Let us talk about those grand sacrifices. When I was 18 years old, I came to you with my college acceptance letter. I had earned a partial academic scholarship, but I needed a co-signer for my student loans to cover the rest of the tuition. I stood in your kitchen holding those financial aid papers, and I begged you. I pleaded with you to sign a piece of paper so I could get a business degree. I watch his eyes dart to the side. He knows exactly where I am going, but I refuse to let him look away. You looked me dead in the eye and told me I was a bad investment. I state, my voice dropping to a freezing, lethal pitch. You told me that the business world was strictly designed for men, and that throwing money at a dark-skinned girl's education was a waste of resources. You said a woman's only real currency was how well she married, and that I should just focus on finding a husband who could tolerate my ambition. You outright refused to sign those loan papers. I take another deliberate step forward, forcing him to nervously shift his weight backward. Exactly 3 months later, Chantel graduated from high school with a miserable C average. And what did you do for your golden child? You walked into a luxury dealership and dropped $60,000 in cold hard cash to buy her a brand new Mercedes-Benz. You drained the family accounts to reward absolute mediocrity because she was light-skinned, pretty, and promised to marry into old money. You decided that her social climbing was worth a luxury vehicle, while my higher education was not even worth a signature on a loan document. Tyrone opens his mouth to speak to offer some pathetic rambling justification, but I raise my hand, slicing through the air to completely silence him. You raised me to be a stepping stone. You cultivated a toxic patriarchal household where women are either trophies to be traded for social status or mules to bear the weight of your financial failures. You firmly believed that I would just sit quietly in the shadows for the rest of my life, absorbing your daily insults and catering to Chantel's extravagant delusions. I turn and gesture toward the forged contract resting on the conference table next to Jasmine. And now you boldly walk into this building after committing felony fraud. You forge my name on a legally binding corporate document to steal $150,000 in premium luxury services because you are completely broke. You remortgaged your house twice to fund Chantel's designer wardrobe, and now you have absolutely no way to pay for the wedding you promised the Sterling family. You thought you could just bully your weak, low-level daughter into hiding your crime. I lean in close, lowering my voice so he has to strain to hear the absolute finality in my words. You want to call my superiors Tyrone. You want to call the executives at Lumina Hospitality Group and demand my immediate termination. Go right ahead. Pick up your phone right now. Call the CEO. I watch a wave of deep confusion wash over his face. He looks at me, his brow furrowed, then glances nervously at Jasmine, who is staring back at him with a cold, predatory smile. The realization has not fully hit his ego yet, but the seed of absolute terror has just been planted in his mind. I am not going to retract a single word of that demand letter, I tell him, turning my back and walking confidently toward my chair. You have exactly 48 hours to wire $150,000 into the corporate holding account. If that money does not arrive by the deadline, I will not only cancel the wedding entirely, but I will hand that forged contract directly to the Atlanta Police Department. I sit back down, fold my hands, and look at the man who used to terrorize my childhood. Now get out of my office before I have security throw you out onto the pavement. Tyrone stares at me, his chest heaving with exertion, his brain completely short-circuiting at my defiance. For a fleeting second, he looks at me as if I have suddenly begun speaking to him in a foreign language. He is so accustomed to my immediate terrified compliance that my absolute stillness confuses him. He lets out a harsh, barking laugh, a sound devoid of any real humor designed purely to assert his dominance. You are going to have security throw me out. He mocks, his voice dripping with venomous condescension. You think because you sit in a nice borrowed chair that you have any real power here. I am calling the managing director right now, Kiara. I am going to stand right here and watch you pack your cardboard box. He reaches into the pocket of his slacks and pulls out his cell phone, his thick fingers aggressively tapping the screen to unlock it. He is waiting for me to panic. He is waiting for the tears to well up in my eyes, for me to rush around the desk and beg him to put the phone away. He is waiting for the apology he believes is his divine right as the patriarch of the Addams family. I do not flinch. I do not raise my voice a single decibel. I keep my eyes locked entirely on his face as I reach out and slowly pull open the top drawer of my mahogany desk. My fingers brush against the heavy premium cardstock of my personal stationery. I withdraw a single pristine white card. I place it flat on the polished wood, and with one swift, deliberate motion, I slide it across the expanse of the desk. The card glides with a soft, satisfying whisper, coming to a halt exactly 2 inches from his trembling knuckles. Tyrone stops tapping his phone screen. He glares at the small rectangle of paper, initially refusing to pick it up as if doing so would be a concession to my authority. But human curiosity is a powerful flaw, and his eyes inevitably drop to read the text. The heavy gold foil embossing catches the morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the elegant typography. It reads Kiara Washington, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Lumina Hospitality Group. I watch the exact moment the devastating reality of his situation pierces through his thick, impenetrable ego. It is a spectacular, almost theatrical physical transformation. The angry, violent purple flush that had stained his face just moments ago vanishes instantly. All the blood drains from his cheeks, leaving behind a sickly, ashen gray pallor. His jaw goes completely slack, and the cell phone slips from his loosened grip, clattering loudly against the wood of my desk. He looks up at me, his eyes wide and unblinking, his breathing suddenly shallow and rapid. You, he stammers, the booming authoritative resonance completely stripped from his vocal cords. You are the CEO. I am the silent founder, the sole visionary, and the absolute majority shareholder of this entire corporate entity. I state my voice carrying the lethal calm of an apex predator closing its jaws. I own the building you are standing in. I own the chairs you are looking at. And most importantly, I own the Grand Magnolia estate. I bought it. I restored it. I hired the managers you thought you could manipulate, and I built the digital infrastructure you so foolishly thought you could bypass. He opens his mouth to speak, perhaps to issue a denial, or to spin another one of his famous gaslighting narratives, but his throat is entirely dry. He swallows hard, his eyes darting frantically between me and Jasmine, who is sitting quietly at the conference table, observing his total destruction with a look of supreme professional satisfaction. You assumed I was a low-level coordinator. I continue stepping closer to the edge of the desk, so he is forced to look up at me. You and Chantel arrogantly believed you could forge a corporate signature slided into an administrative pile and steal $150,000 worth of premium inventory from a faceless conglomerate. You never stopped to consider that the system you were defrauding was built to flag anomalies instantly. I gesture to the thick manila folder resting near Jasmine. Our corporate fraud department logged your forged signature the exact second it was uploaded into the system. I explain, watching him flinch at the word fraud. You did not just forge a piece of paper, Tyrone. You logged into a secure corporate server. Our IT department immediately pulled the unredacted IP logs. We tracked the digital footprint directly back to the Wi-Fi router in your living room. We have the precise timestamp of Chantel logging and the exact keystrokes used to bypass the standard deposit requirements and the digital signature stamp that matches your home network. It is irrefutable, undeniable digital forensics. Tyrone takes a shaky step backward. His hand reaches blindly behind him, gripping the back of a guest chair just to keep his knees from buckling. The towering, intimidating father figure has been reduced to a terrified, cornered trespasser. Kiara, please, he whispers, the desperation bleeding through his cracked voice. It was just a misunderstanding. We just wanted Chantel to have a nice day. We can work this out internally. We are family. I laugh. It is a cold, sharp sound that echoes mercilessly in the vast office. We are not family, I correct him, my gaze completely void of any warmth or mercy. We are two parties involved in a severe breach of corporate security, and in the corporate world, actions have massive, devastating consequences. I lean over the desk, bracing my weight on my hands, commanding his total, terrified attention. You have exactly two choices, I tell him, pronouncing every syllable with meticulous care. Your first choice is to wire the full balance of $150,000 directly into the Lumina Hospitality Group holding account by this Friday at exactly 5 p.m. Not a penny less. No payment plans, no extensions. I do not care if you have to remortgage your house a third time. I do not care if you have to sell Chantel's Mercedes or liquidate your retirement fund. You will pay for the premium services you attempted to steal, and Chantel can have her lovely little society wedding. Tyrone shakes his head violently, sweat beading on his forehead. Kiara, I do not have that kind of liquid cash. You know I do not have it. The Sterling family expects this wedding. If we lose the venue, Connor will cancel the engagement. It will ruin her. Then you better choose option 2. I reply smoothly, unfazed by his panic. I straighten my posture and adjust the cuffs of my silk blazer. If that wire transfer does not hit my corporate account by Friday at 5 p.m., the venue goes immediately to a tech executive on our wait list who is offering to pay double for a cancellation. And more importantly, Jasmine will take the unredacted IP logs, the digital timestamps, and the physical forged contract, and she will walk them directly into the precinct of the Atlanta Police Department. Tyrone chokes on his own breath, a strangled gasp escaping his lungs. "You committed felony fraud," I remind him, my voice devoid of any sympathy. "You forged an executive's signature to steal a six-figure service. That carries a mandatory minimum sentence. If you do not pay, I will press maximum charges. I will let the police arrest you and Chantel." Imagine the look on Connor Sterling's face when his beautiful bride is hauled out of your suburban home in handcuffs instead of a wedding gown. Imagine your elite social circle reading the police blotter detailing how the Addams family are nothing but broke, desperate criminals. He stares at me, his eyes bloodshot, his mouth opening and closing in silent horror. He looks at me as if I am a stranger, as if the daughter he spent 2 decades belittling and discarding has been replaced by an absolute monster. He is finally realizing the magnitude of his error. He did not walk into the office of a submissive child he could bully into compliance. He walked into a slaughterhouse and he handed the butcher the knife. Friday at 5 p.m. I repeat my tone, signaling that the meeting is permanently adjourned. "Do not test me, Tyrone. You will lose everything." He does not argue. He does not yell. He does not slam his fist on the desk. The fight has been completely drained from his body. Tyrone slowly backs away from the desk, his hands shaking violently at his sides. He turns around, his broad shoulders slumped in absolute defeat, and stumbles out of the heavy glass doors of the executive suite, leaving nothing behind but the shattered remains of his pathetic ego. The heavy glass doors of the executive suite glide shut, sealing away the pathetic sight of Tyrone fleeing down the corridor. Jasmine lets out a long, slow breath, her hands finally moving away from the security panic button on the underside of the conference table. We sit in the pristine quiet of my office, the air conditioning humming gently above us. The contrast between my father's violent, sweaty desperation and my absolute freezing control is palpable. He thought he was marching into a room to discipline a disobedient teenager. Instead, he walked blindfolded into a corporate fortress where his patriarchal rage holds absolutely zero currency. Before Jasmine can even ask if she should prepare the formal police report, a sharp vibration rattles against the mahogany wood of my desk. My personal cell phone lights up. The screen displays an unknown Atlanta number. I rarely receive calls on this device during business hours, and I never answer unsolicited numbers. But today, the trap is already in motion. I pick it up, sliding my thumb across the screen to answer. I do not say a word, simply holding the receiver to my ear and waiting for the caller to speak first. The voice on the other end is distinctly male. It carries a polished, effortless cadence that practically drips with generational wealth and expensive private schooling. It is a voice accustomed to being heard and obeyed, yet currently it is laced with a heavy, uncomfortable hesitation. He introduces himself as Connor Sterling. I immediately picture his perfectly tailored suits and the immense sprawling commercial real estate empire his family controls. He is Chantel's golden ticket, the billionaire heir she has spent 3 long years desperately trying to trap. Connor clears his throat politely, apologizing for interrupting my workday. He sounds like a man stepping onto a battlefield he does not understand, attempting to mediate a conflict he finds incredibly distasteful. He tells me that he is standing in the foyer of his home and that Chantel is currently locked in the guest bedroom, sobbing uncontrollably. He explains that he is calling me directly because he wants to be a supportive partner to his future wife, but the story he is currently being told makes absolutely no logical sense to him. I lean back in my leather chair, signaling Jasmine to remain seated. I ask Connor to explain exactly what Chantel told him. He hesitates again, his elite manners making it difficult for him to repeat the ugly accusations aloud. Finally, he admits that Chantel claims I was just terminated from my low-level event planning job for severe insubordination. He tells me Chantel is hysterical because, according to her, I used my final moments of access to the corporate system to maliciously cancel their luxury venue reservation out of pure, bitter spite. And the reason for this supposed sabotage, Connor sounds almost embarrassed to say it out loud. He tells me Chantel claims I am holding a psychotic grudge over a ruined birthday cake. He actually tries to mediate using a gentle, soothing tone to tell me that while the incident with Maya's cake was unfortunate, canceling a wedding venue is taking a petty sibling rivalry much too far. I close my eyes for a brief second, absorbing the sheer, staggering magnitude of my sister's deception. It is almost impressive how quickly she manufactured a narrative to cover her tracks. She knows Tyrone failed. She knows the $150,000 extortion trap is closing in on them. So instead of admitting to her billionaire fiancé that her family is completely broke and facing felony fraud charges, she is spinning a fairy tale. She is painting herself as the innocent victim of a jealous, unstable, poverty-stricken sister who lost her mind over a pastry. She is deliberately using Maya's ruined birthday cake to conceal a federal crime. This is Chantel's signature survival tactic. She has spent her entire life isolating her wealthy targets, feeding them carefully curated lies to hide our family's toxic, financially ruined reality. When she dated that investment banker 3 years ago, she told him I was a recovering addict to explain why she refused to invite me to their dinners. She preys on the empathy of decent men, turning my existence into a tragic cautionary tale that makes her look like a resilient angel. She thinks she can run the exact same con on Connor Sterling. She believes she can control the flow of information and paint me as a disgruntled, fired employee before I can expose the truth. I do not raise my voice. I do not sound angry, defensive, or unhinged. I speak to Connor with the measured, terrifying calm of a chief executive officer. I tell him that I appreciate his polite approach and his genuine desire to support his future wife. Then I gently inform him that he is operating under a catastrophic amount of false information. I tell him that I have not been fired. I tell him that a phone conversation is entirely insufficient for the sheer severity of the legal documents currently sitting on my desk. I know the Sterling family owns the massive commercial plaza just 3 blocks away from my building. I instruct Connor to leave his house right now. I tell him to meet me at the private executive cafe on the top floor of his own family's building in exactly 1 hour. I specify that he must come completely alone. I tell him I will bring the physical evidence regarding his wedding venue, and he can decide for himself who is telling the truth. Connor is silent for a moment, processing my freezing, authoritative tone. It directly contradicts the image of the erratic, hysterical woman Chantel just described to him. He agrees to the meeting, his voice tight with a sudden dawning apprehension. But before he can confirm the exact time, the background noise on his end of the phone shatters. I hear a heavy wooden door slam open against a wall. Then I hear Chantel. Her voice is shrill, manic, and completely stripped of her delicate high society facade. She screams at the top of her lungs, her panic echoing violently through the receiver. "Connor, do not talk to that crazy bitch. Hang up the phone right now." The line instantly goes dead. The Sterling Plaza Executive Lounge sits 40 stories above the chaotic Atlanta traffic, wrapped in floor-to-ceiling tinted glass and bathed in the quiet, insulated hum of generational wealth. It is an exclusive sanctuary designed for corporate titans requiring a biometric scan just to access the elevator bank. It is Connor Sterling's territory, an environment built entirely to keep people like my father and sister on the outside. I step off the private elevator and easily spot Connor sitting in a secluded leather booth at the far end of the room. He is wearing a tailored charcoal suit, his posture rigid with tension as he stares down at an untouched cup of black coffee. Despite the manic hysteria his fiancée just subjected him to, he immediately stands up when he sees me approaching, pulling out the chair across from him with practiced, polite elegance. Connor has always been a fundamentally decent man. He is kind, well-educated, and entirely oblivious to the predatory nature of the people he is about to marry into. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me, Kiara," he says, his voice low and strained. He signals a waiter to bring me a glass of sparkling water before sitting back down. He folds his hands on the marble table, looking at me with a mixture of confusion and deep concern. I want you to know that I am trying to be objective here. I love Chantel, but the phone call I just had with her left me completely lost. She is hyperventilating in our guest room. She told me you were fired this morning for extreme insubordination. He pauses, choosing his next words very carefully to avoid sounding accusatory. She said your father has been saving money his entire life to pay for this wedding. She told me he was paying the $150,000 entirely out of pocket as a gift to us. And according to Chantel, you used your final hours of system access to maliciously cancel the venue out of pure spite. I take a slow, deliberate sip of my sparkling water, letting the cool liquid soothe my throat. The sheer audacity of the narrative Chantel has constructed is almost breathtaking. She has spent 3 years curating the illusion that she comes from a prosperous, stable family. She convinced Connor that Tyrone is a proud, wealthy patriarch, generously funding a luxury event, all while our father is drowning in predatory loans and multiple mortgages just to keep his house out of foreclosure. I place my glass down on a linen coaster. I do not raise my voice. I do not show an ounce of the anger simmering beneath my calm exterior. Connor, I say smoothly, folding my hands on the table, my parents do not have $150,000. They do not even have $15,000 in liquid assets. My father has remortgaged his suburban home twice to fund Chantel's designer wardrobe and her desperate attempts to integrate into your social circle. There is no secret savings account. There is no grand patriarch offering a wedding gift. You have been lied to since the day you met her. Connor frowns, shaking his head slightly. He wants to defend her, his protective instincts fighting against my absolute certainty. But Kiara, I saw the deposit confirmation emails. She showed them to me on her phone. The venue is booked. I reach into my leather tote bag and pull out the thick manila folder Jasmine prepared for me. I place it flat on the marble table and slide it across the smooth surface until it rests directly under Connor's gaze. She showed you forged documents, I state plainly. I am not a fired event planner, Connor. I am the founder, the chief executive officer, and the majority shareholder of Lumina Hospitality Group. I own the company your future father-in-law just tried to defraud. Connor physically recoils, his back hitting the leather booth. The color instantly drains from his face as he stares at me. The cognitive dissonance is hitting him like a freight train. He looks down at the folder, his hands hesitating for a fraction of a second before he flips the cover open. I guide him through the contents with surgical precision. The first page is the contract Chantel showed you. Look at the authorization line. That is my signature forged by Tyrone. The second page is our corporate security log. When they bypassed the standard deposit requirement, our system flagged the anomaly. The third page contains the unredacted IP logs provided by our IT department. Those numbers trace the digital footprint of the contract submission directly back to the Wi-Fi router inside my father's living room. Connor reads the documents. As an executive who deals with commercial real estate contracts daily, he understands exactly what he is looking at. He sees the timestamps. He sees the digital signatures. He sees the absolute undeniable proof of a federal crime sitting in his lap. His breathing turns shallow. This is felony fraud, Connor whispers, his eyes scanning the IP logs again and again, desperately searching for a mistake that does not exist. Your father tried to steal a 6-figure venue reservation. I gave him 48 hours to wire the full amount to our corporate holding account. I inform him, my voice completely devoid of sympathy. If the money does not clear by Friday at 5 o'clock, I am handing those exact documents over to the Atlanta Police Department. Connor rubs his temples, his mind racing to process the destruction of his perfect reality. He looks up at me, his eyes pleading for a loophole. Tyrone could have done this alone. Chantel might not know the extent of his financial ruin. She might genuinely believe he paid for it. She told me you were just angry about a birthday cake. She said you have always been volatile and jealous of her and that you ruined her wedding planning over a pastry. I lean forward, closing the distance between us, ensuring he feels the full weight of my words. Let me tell you the truth about Maya's birthday cake, I say softly. Maya is my 7-year-old niece. Last weekend we threw a small family party for her. I spent hours baking and decorating a custom cake because it was the only thing she asked for. Chantel arrived late carrying a box of fabric swatches for your wedding. She demanded the dining room table. When she was told to wait until after we sang happy birthday to a child, Chantel threw a tantrum. She picked up that custom cake and shoved it directly into the garbage disposal while Maya stood there crying. Connor stares at me in horrified silence. She did not do it by accident, I continue holding his gaze. She did it to reassert her dominance. She did it because for 10 minutes the attention in the room was not focused entirely on her. She is using a story about a ruined cake to convince you that I am unhinged, deliberately masking her own absolute lack of empathy. She is not a victim, Connor. She is a narcissist who uses collateral damage as a stepping stone, and right now you are her biggest stepping stone. Connor looks down at the fraud documents again. His hands are trembling slightly. He is a man who relies on logic and data, and the data in front of him is devastating. The IP logs do not lie. The forged signature does not lie. The fact that I am sitting here as a CEO and not a fired employee destroys every single word Chantel told him just an hour ago. But he loves her. I can see the painful, agonizing conflict warring in his eyes. He is trying to reconcile the elegant, sweet woman who agreed to marry him with the manipulative criminal family staring back at him from the paperwork. He wants to believe she is innocent. He wants to believe she is just the tragic victim of a crazy father and a bitter sister. He touches the edge of the manila folder, hesitating on the precipice of a decision that will alter the rest of his life. The drive back from Sterling Plaza is quiet, the heavy silence of my luxury sedan offering a stark contrast to the absolute devastation I just unleashed. I left Connor sitting in that discreet, dimly lit cafe, staring at the physical paperwork as if it were a live grenade. He has the unredacted IP logs. He has the forged contract. He has the brutal, undeniable truth about the woman he is about to marry. The cognitive dissonance was actively fracturing his reality before I even walked out the door. The heavy lifting is done. Or so I think. I pull into the driveway of my home, the quiet, secure sanctuary I built with my own money to protect Maya and myself from the toxic chaos of my blood relatives. I step through the front door, slipping off my heels and dropping my keys onto the entryway console. The house is perfectly peaceful. Maya is still at her after-school program, and I have exactly 2 hours of absolute silence to decompress, pour a glass of wine, and prepare for the evening. But the silence is immediately and violently shattered. My personal cell phone resting in the bottom of my leather tote bag begins to vibrate. It is not just a single notification. It is a relentless, sustained buzzing accompanied by a rapid, overlapping cascade of digital chimes. I pull the device out and look at the lock screen. It is completely covered in alerts. Missed calls, text messages, direct messages, and social media tags are multiplying by the second. Scrolling past my eyes faster than I can read them. The little red notification bubbles on my applications all read 99 plus. My brow furrows in confusion. I unlock the phone and open my primary inbox. The screen is an absolute wall of hostility. I click on the most recent message from a distant high school acquaintance. It contains a single link and a caption asking if I have completely lost my mind. I tap the link and my screen immediately transitions to Chantel's primary social media profile. The video has already been live for 45 minutes and has amassed tens of thousands of views. I turn up the volume. Chantel's face fills the screen. She is sitting on the edge of her plush velvet sofa, wearing an oversized, neutral-toned sweater that deliberately makes her look small, fragile, and utterly defenseless. Her hair is perfectly disheveled, pushed back from her face, and she is entirely devoid of her usual heavy, glamorous makeup. It is a masterclass in calculated, weaponized vulnerability. She looks directly into the camera lens, takes a shaky, highly theatrical breath, and lets a single flawless tear roll down her cheek. She begins to speak, her voice trembling with manufactured devastation. She tells her massive audience that she is experiencing the darkest, most heartbreaking betrayal of her entire life. She claims that she just found out her dream wedding venue has been maliciously canceled, throwing months of planning and hundreds of thousands of dollars into total jeopardy. But the true horror she whispers, wiping her cheek with the sleeve of her oversized sweater, is the person who did it. She looks into the lens and tells the world that her bitter single mother sister is trying to extort her and ruin her life out of pure jealousy. She spins a terrifying, elaborate web of absolute lies, delivering them with the conviction of a seasoned sociopath. She claims I was terminated from my event planning job this morning for erratic, unstable behavior. She tells her followers that instead of accepting my termination gracefully, I used my final moments of administrative access to log into the corporate system and cancel her luxury venue. She paints me as a miserable, financially struggling single mother who simply cannot stand to see her younger sister marry into a wealthy, loving family. She does not stop there. She actively and maliciously weaponizes my daughter. Chantel looks at the camera and claims that I have been unraveling mentally for months, culminating in a violent psychotic break over a birthday cake. She tells her followers that I threw a cake across the room, terrified the family, and am now demanding a massive cash payout to fix my ruined, pathetic life. She sits there, a picture of angelic victimhood, asking her followers for prayers while she tries to figure out how to save her wedding from her extortionist sister. I watch the video end, the screen fading to black, and my blood turns to absolute ice. She did not just lie. She weaponized my single motherhood. She used Maya's ruined birthday as a convenient prop in her psychotic smear campaign. She knows Tyrone failed to intimidate me. She knows the $150,000 extortion trap is closing in on them. So instead of admitting to the world that her family is completely broke and facing felony fraud charges, she is attempting to publicly execute my character. I exit the video and open my message requests. The fallout is instantaneous and terrifying. Chantel's digital army, completely manipulated by her tearful performance, is flooding my accounts with visceral hatred. But it is not just strangers, it is my extended family. The people I grew up with, the aunts who used to pinch my cheeks, the cousins I played with at summer barbecues, have transformed into a vicious, bloodthirsty mob. My inbox is a slaughterhouse of familial betrayal. I read a message from Aunt Denise. She calls me a jealous, pathetic failure who is trying to steal money from my own blood. I scroll down. Cousin Marcus tells me I am a disgrace to the family name and that I should be locked up in a psychiatric ward for extorting my sister. My phone continues to buzz violently in my hand as paragraphs of pure venom load onto the screen. They call me bitter. They call me a failure. They tell me that this is exactly why I am a single mother, because my toxic, spiteful personality drives everyone away. Not a single one of them called me to ask for my side of the story. Not a single aunt, uncle, or cousin paused to consider if Chantel's dramatic, tearful narrative actually aligned with reality. They swallowed her lies instantly because it fits the narrative Tyrone has fed them for years. Chantel is the golden child destined for greatness, and I am the dark, angry disappointment. I stand in the middle of my quiet living room, the glowing screen illuminating my face. They are fiercely defending a criminal. They are aggressively attacking the woman who built a corporate empire, fully believing I am an unemployed extortionist. The absolute willingness of my extended family to participate in my public execution is what truly burns. They are enjoying this. They are reveling in the opportunity to kick me while they believe I am down. Suddenly, a new notification drops down from the top of the screen. It is a voicemail from Valerie, my mother. For a fraction of a second, a foolish, persistent part of my inner child hopes that she is calling to defend me. I hope she is calling to tell me that she knows Chantel is lying, that she knows Tyrone committed fraud, and that she wants to make this right. I press play and lift the phone to my ear. Valerie's voice does not tremble. It is not filled with maternal concern, nor is it seeking any clarification. It is a cold, sharp, venomous blade striking with absolute, unapologetic precision. She does not ask me how I am. She does not ask me what happened. She simply delivers her final verdict. I just watched your sister crying on the internet because of your psychotic jealousy. Valerie spits into the receiver, her voice dripping with unmasked loathing. Your father told me everything you did in that office today. You are a disgusting, spiteful creature. You are trying to ruin this family because you are miserable and alone. Let me make this incredibly clear to you, Kiara. You are dead to me. You are no longer my daughter. You are no longer a part of this bloodline. Do not ever contact us again. The line clicks, leaving a hollow static silence in my ear. I slowly lower the phone from my face. I am completely disowned. The woman who gave birth to me just severed our ties over a voicemail, choosing to fiercely protect a husband who committed felony fraud, and a daughter who is a pathological liar. I do not cry. I do not drop to my knees in despair. I place the phone face down on the kitchen counter and take a deep, steadying breath. They think they have backed me into a corner. They think this massive, coordinated public smear campaign will force me to drop the financial demand, to cower in shame, and restore Chantel's venue to avoid total social annihilation. They think public pressure will break me. They are so profoundly wrong. The timer is still ticking. Friday at 5 p.m. is approaching, and I am going to let them burn their own kingdom to the ground. The digital inferno rages on my phone, continuously vibrating against the cold granite of my kitchen island. But I do not touch it. I do not issue a public statement. I do not record a tearful response video. I do not lower myself into the mud to wrestle with a family of pathological liars. Engaging with a smear campaign is the fastest way to validate it. Narcissists like Chantel feed on the desperate defensive reactions of their victims. They want you to scream. They want you to post frantic paragraphs defending your honor so they can point their manicured fingers and label you unhinged. I refuse to give them a single ounce of ammunition. Instead of fighting a public relations war on a superficial social media platform, I take the voicemails, the violent text messages, and the links to Chantel's fabricated sob story, and I forward all of it directly to my corporate legal team. I pour myself a glass of Cabernet, carry my laptop into my home office, and initiate a secure video conference with my lead corporate attorney, Marcus, and the head of our internal investigations unit. If my family is going to launch a full-scale character assassination to protect their billionaire wedding facade, I need to know exactly what kind of structural integrity is holding that facade together. I instruct the investigative team to pull every piece of available public financial data on Tyrone and Valerie Adams. I want property deeds, mortgage histories, public tax liens, and civil court records. It takes the team less than 3 hours to compile a comprehensive dossier. Marcus sends the encrypted file to my secure inbox. I open it, taking a slow sip of my wine as I scroll through the financial reality of my blood relatives. What I find is not just bad, it is a catastrophic radioactive crater of absolute financial ruin. Tyrone has spent my entire life boasting about his success, wearing tailored suits and demanding total patriarchal respect as the wealthy provider. But the documents on my screen tell a profoundly pathetic story. Their sprawling 5-bedroom suburban home, the ultimate symbol of their middle-class superiority, has been completely leveraged. They took out a second mortgage 5 years ago. 2 years later, they maxed out a home equity line of credit. The property is underwater, but the disaster goes much deeper than real estate. I scroll down to the credit analysis. The sheer volume of consumer debt is staggering. There are multiple high-interest personal loans, 0% introductory credit cards that have defaulted to penalty rates, and leased luxury vehicles operating under subprime financing agreements. The puzzle pieces instantly snap into place. Every designer handbag Chantel flaunted, every European vacation they bragged about, the private school tuitions, the country club membership fees. None of it was funded by actual wealth. It was funded by an escalating, desperate mountain of toxic debt. Tyrone and Valerie bled themselves completely dry to finance Chantel's manufactured high society lifestyle. They bankrupted their own future just to buy their golden child a VIP ticket into Connor Sterling's elite social circle. The motivation behind the forged venue contract is no longer just arrogant entitlement. It is raw, terrifying desperation. When Chantel demanded a wedding venue, that cost $150,000 to secure her billionaire fiancé, Tyrone, could not just write a check. He could not take out another loan because his credit profile is entirely toxic. They literally have $0 to their name. They are teetering on the absolute edge of total bankruptcy. Stealing the luxury services of the Grand Magnolia estate was not a shortcut. It was the only possible way they could keep the wedding from collapsing. If the Sterling family finds out that the wealthy, sophisticated Adams family is actually drowning in subprime debt, the engagement will be terminated instantly. I close the dossier and lean back in my leather chair. The cold, clinical disgust settles deep into my bones. They sacrificed my childhood, discarded my emotions, and publicly disowned me over a voicemail, all to protect a daughter who has financially destroyed them. They committed a federal felony just to keep a fake designer label stitched onto their pathetic, hollow lives. My father's arrogant threat in my office was nothing but empty, terrified air. He cannot wire the money by Friday at 5 o'clock. It is a mathematical impossibility. He is going to lose everything, and he has absolutely no one to blame but himself. The evening stretches on. I leave the office, draw a hot bath, and let the steamy water wash away the lingering tension of the day. I feel a profound, unshakable peace. The chaos of my family is no longer my burden to carry. I am simply the architect of their consequences. I step out of the bath, wrap myself in a thick silk robe, and walk into my bedroom just as the antique grandfather clock in the hallway chimes midnight. I am reaching for the lamp to turn off the lights when my phone suddenly blares a sharp, piercing alarm. It is a specialized high-priority ringtone designated exclusively for Lumina Hospitality Group's executive security team. I grab the phone instantly. It is Jasmine. I answer the call, completely bypassing any standard greeting. "Speak," I command, my voice sharp and alert. "Kiara, you need to open your laptop and log into the live security feeds for the Grand Magnolia." "Immediately," Jasmine says. Her voice is breathless, laced with a mixture of absolute shock and urgent panic. "What is happening on my property, Jasmine?" I demand, already striding back down the hallway toward my office. "Your sister," Jasmine replies, her words rushing out in a frantic stream. "She bypassed the main security gate. One of the night guards assumed she was an authorized vendor because she arrived in a commercial floral van. Kiara, she broke into the main ballroom. She is physically inside the venue right now." I drop into my office chair, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I pull up the secure corporate surveillance dashboard. I click on the camera feed for the grand ballroom of the estate. The high-definition night vision cameras stream the footage directly to my monitor in crystal clear quality. "And she is not alone," Jasmine adds, her voice dropping to a horrified whisper. I stare at the screen. The massive crystal chandeliers of the ballroom are fully illuminated. Chantel is standing in the center of my property, wearing a pristine white pantsuit, aggressively waving her arms and barking orders at a terrified-looking team of late-night floral designers. She is directing them to construct massive, towering centerpieces on the dining tables. She is strutting across the polished hardwood floors, acting with the supreme, untouchable confidence of a woman who believes she owns the entire estate. But it is the woman standing next to Chantel that makes the blood freeze in my veins. Standing near the grand staircase holding a clipboard and casually inspecting the silk table linens is Eleanor Sterling, Connor's mother, the ruthless, highly intimidating matriarch of the Sterling real estate empire. Chantel has broken into my secured corporate property in the dead of night, and she has brought her billionaire future mother-in-law to help her set up for a rehearsal dinner that has been legally terminated. She is attempting to force my hand by physically occupying the space, using Eleanor Sterling as an elite human shield, betting her entire life that I will not dare call the police and cause a massive public scandal in front of Atlanta's most powerful family. "Jasmine," I say, my voice dropping to a lethal, vibrating calm. "Dispatch the private security team to lock the perimeter gates. No one leaves. I am getting dressed. I will be there in 20 minutes. I stand in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror in my dressing room, adjusting the lapels of my tailored midnight blue silk blend suit. The cut is razor sharp, the fabric and armor of pure, unadulterated power. Tonight is not about a physical altercation or a screaming match. It is about a calculated surgical corporate execution. I slip on a pair of black stiletto heels, the sharp click against the hardwood floor, sounding like the cocking of a hammer. I pick up my leather briefcase heavy with the weight of unredacted, IP logs, forged contracts, and complete financial dossiers, and head for my car. Driving up the winding, oak-lined driveway of the Grand Magnolia always fills me with a profound sense of accomplishment. I bought this dilapidated 19th century estate out of foreclosure and poured millions into its restoration. Now the sprawling grounds are illuminated by soft ambient landscape lighting, highlighting the pristine white columns and sweeping verandas. It is the absolute crown jewel of Atlanta's luxury event scene, and it belongs entirely to me. I pull up to the heavy wrought iron security gates. The night guard, a retired police officer named Davis, immediately steps out of his booth. He recognizes my car and gives a sharp, respectful nod, hitting the button to open the massive iron doors. I roll down my window as the car glides forward. Davis, I say smoothly, keeping my eyes on the illuminated mansion ahead. Once my car is inside, lock the main perimeter gates. Disable the automatic exit sensors. I do not care who tries to leave tonight. No one exits this property until I give the explicit command. Yes, Ms. Washington, he replies without a single moment of hesitation. I park my sedan near the grand entrance, stepping out into the cool evening air. The heavy mahogany doors of the main house are unlocked, an arrogant oversight by people who believe they are untouchable. I push them open, stepping into the massive marble foyer. The sound of a live string quartet and polite, wealthy laughter drifts down the hallway from the grand ballroom. I walk toward the noise, my footsteps echoing with lethal precision against the polished stone. I pause in the shadowed archway of the ballroom to observe the scene. It is a masterclass in pathetic, desperate delusion. The room is bathed in the warm, golden glow of three massive crystal chandeliers. My waitstaff, dressed in crisp black uniforms, are circulating with silver trays of imported caviar and seared scallops. In the center of the room stands Chantel. She is wearing a pristine ivory silk cocktail dress, holding a flute of champagne, and laughing delicately at something Richard Sterling just said. Richard and Beatrice Sterling exude the kind of effortless, quiet luxury that comes from generations of inherited wealth. Beatrice is draped in understated cashmere, nodding approvingly at my sister, entirely oblivious to the fact that she is conversing with a pathological liar. Tyrone and Valerie are putting on the performance of a lifetime. Tyrone has a glass of amber scotch in one hand, gesturing expansively with the other, as he talks to Richard about commercial real estate trends, a subject he knows absolutely nothing about. He is playing the part of the wealthy, benevolent patriarch, graciously hosting a lavish rehearsal dinner tasting for his beloved daughter. Valerie is standing next to Beatrice, wearing a pearl necklace she undoubtedly purchased on a credit card, carrying a 29% interest rate. She is agreeing with every word Beatrice says, her face locked in the strained, desperate smile of a woman fighting for her very social survival. I step out of the shadows and into the brilliant light of the ballroom. My heels strike the marble floor with a sharp, rhythmic crack that slices right through the classical music. One of the servers, a young man I personally promoted to banquet captain last month, catches my eye. He immediately stops walking and stands at strict attention, recognizing his chief executive officer. Chantel is the first to see me. Her delicate, practiced laugh dies instantly in her throat. The crystal champagne flute in her hand shakes so violently that the pale liquid sloshes over the rim, staining the sleeve of her ivory dress. Tyrone turns his head, following her terrified gaze. All the blood drains from his face, leaving him a sickly ashen gray. The confident, wealthy father figure vanishes in a fraction of a second, replaced entirely by a cornered trespasser who knows he is staring down the barrel of a federal indictment. Valerie actually gasps, her hand flying up to clutch her fake pearls. Beatrice Sterling notices the sudden frozen horror gripping her future in-laws. She turns around, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows knitting together in confusion. She looks at me, taking in my tailored suit and commanding presence. Chantel immediately goes into absolute panic mode. She practically lunges forward, placing herself between me and the Sterlings. Her voice is high and breathless, laced with frantic manic energy. Kiara, what are you doing here? She demands, her eyes wide with terror. You are not supposed to be here. I told you this is a private event. She turns to Beatrice, forcing a laugh that sounds like breaking glass. Beatrice Richard. I am so sorry. This is my older sister, Kiara. She is having a really hard time right now. She has been struggling with some severe mental health issues, and she just lost her job. We are trying to get her the help she needs, but she has been acting so erratically. Please excuse her behavior. Valerie rushes forward, grabbing my arm with fingers that dig into my silk sleeve like talons. She tries to physically turn me back toward the door, her voice a low, venomous hiss intended only for my ears. Get out of here right now, you jealous, spiteful creature, Valerie snarls under her breath. You are not going to ruin this for your sister. Go back to your sad little apartment before I have you thrown out. I look down at my mother's hand gripping my arm. I do not pull away. I simply stare at her fingers, radiating a freezing, absolute authority until she physically recoils. She steps back, her eyes widening with sudden, terrible uncertainty. I look directly at Beatrice and Richard Sterling. They are watching this bizarre family dynamic unfold with polite, aristocratic horror. Connor, who is standing near the custom mahogany bar, suddenly turns around. He sees me, and his face goes entirely blank. He remembers our conversation at the discreet cafe. He remembers the IP logs and the forged contract. He knows exactly why I am here, and he knows that the beautiful illusion is about to be shattered. I address the Sterlings with a warm, perfectly modulated, professional smile. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, I say, my voice carrying clear and steady across the ballroom. I apologize for the interruption, but there seems to be a rather catastrophic miscommunication regarding tonight's event. My name is Kiara Washington. Chantel is indeed my sister, but she is highly mistaken about my employment status, and she is highly mistaken about her right to be in this building. I step past Valerie and Tyrone, moving to the dead center of my ballroom. I gesture to the crystal chandeliers, the waitstaff, the imported floral arrangements. I am not an unemployed event planner. I state, letting the words ring out. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Lumina Hospitality Group. I own the Grand Magnolia Estate. You are currently standing inside my private corporate property. Beatrice Sterling's jaw actually drops. She looks from me to Chantel, the polite confusion rapidly morphing into sharp, calculating scrutiny. She is a woman who deals in high-level corporate acquisitions. She recognizes ownership and authority when she sees it. Richard Sterling clears his throat, setting his drink down on a cocktail table. I do not understand, he says, his voice thick with authority. Tyrone explicitly told us that he rented out this entire estate for the weekend as a gift to the children. He said he secured the exclusive booking months ago and paid in full. I turn my gaze to my father. Tyrone is sweating profusely. He looks like a man standing on the gallows waiting for the floor to drop. My father did not rent this estate, Mr. Sterling, I reply, ensuring every single person in the room hears me. My father does not have a reservation. He does not have a contract. In fact, my corporate security team locked the main perimeter gates 10 minutes ago. Because every single person standing in this room, with the exception of my waitstaff, is currently trespassing. Chantel lets out a shrill, hysterical cry. She turns to Connor, grabbing his lapels with desperate hands. Connor, she is lying. Do not listen to her. She is just trying to destroy my life because she is a miserable single mother who has absolutely nothing. She is trying to extort us. Tell them to throw her out. Please, Connor, do something. Connor does not move to comfort her. He looks down at her hands, gripping his suit, a look of profound disgust washing over his features. He looks back up at me, waiting for the final devastating piece of evidence to fall. I keep my eyes locked on Connor. He is staring at the folder in front of him, begging the universe for a loophole, searching for the final incontrovertible proof that will either save his future wife or shatter the illusion he has been living in for 3 years. Chantel senses his withdrawal. She tightens her grip on his lapels, her manicured nails digging into the expensive fabric as her breathing turns ragged. She is a delusional liar, Connor. Chantel shrieks, her voice echoing harshly off the crystal chandeliers overhead. She is having a massive psychotic episode. Look at her. She just walked in off the street to ruin my life because she is a miserable, jealous failure. Valerie sees her golden child losing control of the narrative. She steps forward again, throwing her body between me and the Sterling family. She points a trembling, aggressive finger directly at my face. "You are trespassing on private property," Valerie hisses, her face twisting into an ugly, desperate snarl. "I am calling the police right now. You are going to be arrested, Kiara. You are going to be dragged out of this estate in handcuffs." I do not blink. I do not flinch. I simply raise my right hand and snap my fingers once. Instantly, Davis and four massive suited security guards step out from the shadows of the arched doorways. They move in perfect synchronization, their polished shoes echoing across the marble as they surround the perimeter of the dining area. Valerie gasps, taking a sudden terrified step backward. Chantel freezes her mouth, falling open as the realization of my physical control over the environment begins to set in. "Stand down, Davis!" I command, my voice slicing effortlessly through the heavy, panicked air. They are our guests until I explicitly state otherwise. I turn my attention away from my hyperventilating mother and sister. I look past them, addressing the two most powerful people in the room with a warm, perfectly modulated professional smile. "Mrs. Sterling, Mr. Sterling, I formally welcome you to the Grand Magnolia Estate," I announce, projecting my voice so it reaches every corner of the vast space. "I apologize sincerely that your rehearsal dinner tasting has been interrupted by this unfortunate administrative correction." Beatrice Sterling narrows her eyes. She is a woman of immense corporate power, a matriarch who deals in high-level acquisitions and ruthless negotiations. She recognizes a hostile takeover when she sees one. The polite confusion on her face morphs instantly into sharp, calculating scrutiny. She straightens her posture, folding her hands in front of her perfectly tailored cashmere wrap. "Ms. Washington," Beatrice says smoothly, ignoring Chantel's frantic sobbing. "I am listening." I do not argue with Chantel. I do not raise my voice to match Valerie's hysteria. I reach into the pocket of my blazer and withdraw a sleek matte black remote control. I point it toward the back of the ballroom and press a single button. A mechanical whirring sound fills the silent room as a massive theater-quality 4K presentation screen descends from the vaulted ceiling. The ambient lights in the ballroom automatically dim, shifting the entire focus of the room to the brilliant glowing rectangle. I press the next button. The screen flashes to life. A high-definition image of the Lumina Hospitality Standard rental contract fills the massive display, illuminating the faces of everyone in the room. I use the built-in laser pointer on the remote to highlight the final page of the document. "This is the contract your future daughter-in-law submitted to our corporate office." I state, the red laser dancing perfectly over the ink. "Please direct your attention to the executive authorization line. That is my name. That is my corporate seal. I did not sign this document." My father, Tyrone Adams, forged my signature to bypass the mandatory deposit requirement. A collective gasp ripples through the room. Tyrone chokes on his scotch, coughing violently as he stares at the massive projection of his own federal crime. I press the button again. The screen transitions to a stark black background filled with lines of crisp green and white data. Our digital infrastructure immediately flagged the forgery. These are the unredacted IP logs pulled directly from our cybersecurity division. They trace the digital submission of that forged contract straight back to the Wi-Fi router inside Tyrone and Valerie Adams' living room. Connor takes a slow, shaky step away from Chantel. She reaches out to grab him again, but he holds up his hand, refusing to look at her. His eyes are glued to the massive screen, his analytical mind processing the absolute finality of the digital forensics. I open my leather briefcase and withdraw a thick bound portfolio. I walk directly over to Beatrice Sterling. She does not back away. She takes the heavy folder from my hands, flipping it open with practiced, ruthless speed. Her husband steps closer, reading the documents over her shoulder. "They are not just criminals," I announce calmly to the silent room. "They are entirely hopelessly bankrupt." I look directly at Connor, ensuring he absorbs the total destruction of his fiancé's facade. "What your mother is holding is a comprehensive financial dossier," I explain. You will see that Tyrone and Valerie Adams have double mortgaged their suburban home. You will see maxed out equity lines of credit, defaulted personal loans, and 0% interest credit cards that have been completely exhausted. They needed to steal this $150,000 venue because they literally have $0 to their name. They are attempting to steal money from my company to buy their way into your family. Beatrice Sterling snaps the folder shut. The sound cracks through the room like a gunshot. Her face is a mask of absolute freezing disgust. She looks at Valerie, who is currently trembling so violently she has to grip the edge of a cocktail table just to remain standing. "Chantel told me you were doing this out of spite," Connor whispers, his voice completely hollow. He turns to look at his fiancée as if she is a dangerous stranger. "She told me you were throwing a psychotic tantrum because of a ruined birthday cake." I smile. It is a terrifying, razor-sharp expression. I am so glad she brought that up. I press the final button on the remote. The screen goes black for a fraction of a second before springing back to life. This time, it is not a scanned document. It is crisp, unedited security footage from my personal home kitchen. The video begins to play. The audio is piped directly through the ballroom's surround sound speakers. Everyone in the room hears the bright, happy sounds of my 7-year-old niece Maya playing in the background. Then the footage clearly captures Chantel storming into the frame. The entire ballroom watches in horrified, breathless silence as Chantel violently grabs the custom birthday cake and shoves it directly down the garbage disposal. The grinding mechanical noise of the disposal echoes violently through the elegant estate. On the screen, Chantel turns to Valerie, throws her head back, and laughs. Look at her face, the digital Chantel sneers on the video, mocking a crying child. Maybe next time they will learn to make me the priority. The video freezes on Chantel's cruel, laughing face. The silence in the ballroom is absolute and suffocating. The elegant, blushing bride facade has been completely incinerated. There is nowhere left to hide. There are no more fairy tales she can spin. She has been exposed as a manipulative, fraudulent, vicious predator in front of the exact people she spent 3 years trying to deceive. Connor Sterling does not yell. He does not throw a tantrum. He simply reaches up and unbuttons his tailored suit jacket. He slides the expensive fabric off his shoulders and drapes it over the back of a nearby chair. The quiet finality of the movement is chilling. He looks at Chantel with a gaze filled with absolute unfiltered disgust. "The wedding is off," Connor says coldly. He does not wait for a response. He turns to his parents, gives a brief nod, and begins to walk toward the grand exit. Beatrice drops the financial folder onto the marble floor and follows her son, her husband, right behind her. The Sterling family departs, walking past my security team without ever looking back. Chantel falls to her knees on the marble floor. A guttural, agonizing wail rips from her throat as she watches her billionaire future walk out the door forever. Her entire life's work, every lie, every manipulation, every carefully curated outfit, has been destroyed in less than 5 minutes. I stand in the center of the room, looking at the ashes of their fake empire. I have executed the corporate and social destruction of the Addams family flawlessly. But a cornered animal is the most dangerous kind. A sudden explosive roar shatters the quiet. Tyrone snaps. The public humiliation, the total destruction of his patriarchal ego, and the impending reality of federal prison completely break his mind. He lets out a sound of pure, unadulterated rage. He drops his heavy crystal glass, the shards exploding across the floor, and lunges violently toward me. His face is purple with fury, his eyes wild and unhinged as he raises his massive fist to strike me down. The physical distance between my father and me vanishes in a fraction of a second, but his fist never connects. Davis, my lead security director, moves with the terrifying, lethal speed of a man trained for exactly this scenario. He intercepts Tyrone mid-lunge, gripping my father's raised arm and twisting his momentum flawlessly. The heavy crunch of combat boots against the marble floor reverberates through the room as Davis drives Tyrone face first into the ground. The impact forces the breath from my father's lungs in a loud, wet wheeze. 2 more guards instantly drop their weight onto his legs and shoulders, pinning him completely to the polished stone. Tyrone thrashes against the floor, his face pressed into the tiny glittering shards of his shattered Scotch glass. He is screaming, spitting obscenities, and demanding respect, completely unable to process that his patriarchal authority has absolutely no jurisdiction in my domain. Right on cue, the heavy oak doors of the grand foyer swing open. The flashing red and blue lights of multiple patrol cruisers bleed through the entryway, casting erratic, frantic shadows across the elegant ballroom walls. I did not just send the financial dossiers to the Sterling family tonight. My corporate attorney Marcus forwarded the unredacted IP logs, the forged venue contract, and the digital paper trail of the $150,000 theft directly to the Atlanta Police Department's Financial Crimes Division hours ago. 4 uniformed officers stride into the ballroom, their hands resting cautiously on their duty belts as they take in the scene. They do not ask questions. They do not need to. They have a warrant for felony wire fraud and grand theft of services. Davis and his team step back, hauling a sputtering, bleeding Tyrone to his feet. The police officers move in immediately. The sharp, unmistakable ratcheting sound of heavy steel handcuffs locking around my father's wrists echoes through the silent, cavernous space. It is a brilliant, undeniable sound of absolute finality. The terrified floral designers, the catering staff, and the lingering members of my corporate security team watch in stunned silence as the great wealthy Tyrone Adams is reduced to a common criminal. Valerie's fragile mind snaps. She drops to her knees on the marble floor, the sharp impact tearing the fabric of her expensive, heavily financed dress. She crawls forward, grabbing the hem of my tailored trousers, her perfectly manicured nails scraping against my shoes. "Kiara, please," Valerie screams, her voice cracking into a ragged, guttural shriek. "You cannot do this to us. He is your father. They are going to take him away. Drop the charges, Kiara. I am begging you. Think of our reputation. You are going to ruin the family name." I look down at the woman who birthed me, the woman who completely disowned me over a voicemail just 48 hours ago. She is weeping, her makeup running in dark, ugly streaks down her face, begging me to preserve a reputation that was built entirely on a foundation of toxic debt and pathological lies. "You have no reputation left to save, Valerie," I state, my voice devoid of a single ounce of empathy or warmth. "You are trespassing. Get your hands off me." I step backward, forcing her to release my trousers. 2 police officers take Tyrone by the arms, dragging him toward the exit. He attempts to dig his heels into the floor, screaming my name, threatening me with absolute destruction, but his words are nothing but the hollow, pathetic noise of a defeated man. Valerie scrambles to her feet, stumbling blindly after him, wailing into the flashing red and blue lights of the courtyard. And then there is only Chantel. She is left standing alone in the dead center of the massive illuminated ballroom. Her custom ivory rehearsal dress is stained with spilled champagne, her perfect hair is disheveled, and her face is contorted into a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. She turns her head just in time to watch the silhouette of Connor Sterling step into the back of his waiting town car. The heavy door shuts, and the vehicle glides smoothly down the oak-lined driveway, slipping through the iron gates and disappearing into the night. He does not look back. He does not hesitate. The Sterling family cuts their losses with surgical precision, completely amputating Chantel from their billionaire bloodline. Chantel whips her head back toward me. Her terror instantly calcifies into a vicious, cornered rage. She cannot accept that she caused this. Her narcissistic brain simply cannot compute her own accountability. "You did this?" she screams, her voice shredding as she points a shaking finger at my chest. "You destroyed my life because you are jealous. You have always been jealous of me. You weaponized your bratty little kid and her stupid cake to ruin my wedding. You set me up." I look at her. I do not feel anger. I do not feel satisfaction. I look at my younger sister with cold, unwavering, absolute indifference. "You trashed my daughter's cake because you thought she didn't matter." I say, my words cutting through her hysterical sobbing like a scalpel. "Today you found out who really doesn't matter." I do not wait for her to formulate a response. I do not give her the privilege of another second of my time. I simply raise my hand and give Davis a short, definitive nod. Escort her off my property, I command. Davis steps forward, grabbing Chantel by the elbow. She thrashes, screaming obscenities, kicking her heels against the floor as she is physically dragged out of the grand ballroom. As she is pulled through the archway, I pick up the remote control and press the master power button. The three massive crystal chandeliers power down with a heavy, satisfying click. The ballroom plunges into darkness section by section, leaving nothing but the cold, quiet shadows of an empire that will never exist. The next morning dawns bright, crisp, and beautifully quiet. It is Saturday, the day that was supposed to feature a lavish $150,000 wedding at the Grand Magnolia Estate. Instead, the venue is completely dark, the gates are padlocked shut, and my home is filled with the peaceful sound of Maya watching Saturday morning cartoons in the living room. I sit at my kitchen island sipping a cup of freshly brewed black coffee. I open my personal cell phone and check my messages. The family group chat, which has been an endless toxic stream of wedding updates and passive-aggressive demands for 3 years, is a total absolute graveyard. There is not a single notification, there is not a single word, the silence is magnificent. My laptop chimes with an incoming priority email. It is from Marcus, my lead corporate attorney. I set my coffee mug down and open the encrypted message. The contents are a masterpiece of financial consequence. Marcus informs me that Tyrone's highly public arrest for felony wire fraud triggered an immediate automated cascade of catastrophic financial events. The arrest violated the morality and stability clauses in multiple subprime loans Tyrone had taken out to finance his lifestyle. Furthermore, the bank holding the heavily leveraged double mortgage on my parents' suburban house was alerted to the active fraud investigation. Recognizing that the Adams family was utilizing stolen funds to maintain their facade, the bank's risk management division acted with lethal speed. They initiated an immediate aggressive foreclosure protocol. The house of cards has not just collapsed, it has been legally seized. I lean back in my chair, feeling the warm morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen window. The universe has a beautiful way of balancing the scales when you stop trying to fix broken people and simply let them face the terrifying reality of their own actions. Suddenly, my phone vibrates against the granite countertop. The screen lights up with a direct text message. It is from Chantel. I unlock the device and open the message thread. I stare at the glowing screen of my phone, reading the desperate, pathetic words my sister just sent me. The absolute audacity of Chantel's request is almost staggering. After years of psychological torment, after weaponizing my child's ruined birthday, after attempting to steal $150,000 from my company and orchestrating a public smear campaign to paint me as an unhinged extortionist, her immediate instinct is to ask me for shelter. She actually believes the lifelong dynamic of my subservience is still intact. She expects the scapegoat to open the door and absorb the consequences of the golden child's catastrophic failure. I do not reply immediately. I place the phone face up on the granite island and walk across the pristine hardwood floor of my kitchen. I open the massive stainless steel double doors of my custom refrigerator. Sitting on the top shelf, illuminated by the cool interior lights, is a masterpiece. It is a custom 3-tiered vanilla bean birthday cake covered in flawless, shimmering pink fondant. I had it specially commissioned by Atlanta's top pastry chef to replace the one Chantel shoved down the garbage disposal. It is decorated with delicate sugar-spun butterflies and edible gold leaf, exactly what Maya had asked for. I pull my phone from the counter, open the camera application, and frame the shot perfectly. I capture the towering, beautiful cake in all its intricate, expensive glory. I attach the image to Chantel's message thread. My fingers do not shake. My heart rate does not elevate. I type out a single definitive reply. Sorry, no room. Fridge is full of cake. I press send. I watch the message deliver. Then, without a fraction of a second of hesitation, I tap the settings icon and press block. I do the same for Valerie. I do the same for Tyrone. I sever their digital access to my life with the clinical precision of a surgeon amputating a necrotic limb. I drop the phone into the pocket of my robe and pour myself a fresh cup of coffee, breathing in the rich, dark aroma. The air in my home feels incredibly light. By Monday morning, the fallout transcends my immediate household and detonates across the entire extended family network. The news of Tyrone Adams being arrested for felony wire fraud at a high society event makes the local Atlanta crime blogs. The public filing of the bank's immediate foreclosure on their heavily leveraged suburban home hits the financial registry. But the most devastating shockwave for my relatives is the undeniable revelation of my identity. The same aunts, uncles, and cousins who flooded my inbox with pure venom 48 hours ago, calling me a bitter, jealous failure, have suddenly discovered that I am the sole founder and chief executive officer of Lumina Hospitality Group. They realize I own a multi-million-dollar corporate empire. The social shift is violent and instantaneous. My phone begins to vibrate relentlessly, lighting up with a desperate, groveling swarm of incoming messages. The hypocrisy is so thick it is practically suffocating. Aunt Denise sends a sprawling, frantic paragraph. Kiara, baby, I am so incredibly sorry. We just did not have all the facts. Chantel lied to all of us. You know we always believed in you. You are the absolute pride of the family. Cousin Marcus, the same man who told me I belonged in a psychiatric ward, leaves a fawning, desperate voicemail. Hey, Kiara, it is Marcus. Listen, I heard about the business. That is incredible. We should get together soon. I actually have a few investment ideas I would love to run past you. Family has to stick together, right? I sit at my home office desk, reading the endless stream of backpedaling and manufactured affection. They are terrified. They realize they backed the wrong horse. They tethered their loyalty to an illusion of wealth, and now that the illusion has evaporated, they are scrambling to attach themselves to the actual billionaire in the bloodline. They want access to my resources. They want the prestige of my success. I do not grant them absolution. I do not engage in petty arguments or demand apologies. I simply block every single one of their numbers. I erase Aunt Denise. I erase Cousin Marcus. I systematically go through my contact list and execute a total unapologetic purge. I take a massive pair of digital shears and cut off the entire toxic parasitic branch of my extended family tree. They chose to participate in my public execution when they thought I was weak. They do not get a seat at my table now that they know I am the one who built the banquet hall. 1 month later, the morning sun pours through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my luxurious corner office in downtown Atlanta. The view of the sprawling city skyline is breathtaking, a daily tangible reminder of exactly how far I have climbed. The thick, tempered glass blocks out the noise of the traffic below, leaving the office in a state of absolute elevated tranquility. I sit behind my expansive mahogany desk reviewing the quarterly financial projections for Lumina Hospitality Group. The numbers are astronomical. Following the highly publicized dramatic cancellation of the Sterling wedding, the elite circles of Atlanta did not flee from my business. They flocked to it. The exposure only cemented my reputation as a fiercely competent, untouchable executive who commands absolute control over her properties. The Grand Magnolia is entirely booked for the next 2.5 years. We are currently scouting a third historic estate to acquire and add to the corporate portfolio. Business is not just booming. It is completely unstoppable. I sign the final authorization on a new acquisition contract, setting the heavy gold pen down on my desk. I look across the spacious, beautifully appointed office. Maya is sitting on the plush velvet sofa in the corner, her legs swinging happily over the edge. She is wearing her favorite light-up sneakers and a bright yellow dress, completely engrossed in a coloring book. In her left hand, she holds a massive gourmet strawberry cupcake from our executive kitchen, taking large, joyful bites. She has frosting smeared across her cheek, and she is smiling. That smile is the most valuable asset I possess. The people who tried to extinguish her joy, the people who viewed her as collateral damage in their desperate climb for social status, are currently facing the brutal, crushing reality of the world they built. Tyrone's legal team is desperately trying to negotiate a plea deal with the federal prosecutor, but the evidence of his wire fraud is insurmountable. Valerie is currently living in a cramped two-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city. Her luxury vehicles repossessed, her country club memberships revoked, and Chantel stripped of her designer armor and cut off from the billionaire circle she tried to infiltrate, has been forced to take a minimum wage retail job just to survive. The illusion is dead. The golden child has been forced to join the real world. I lean back in my ergonomic leather chair, watching Maya carefully color inside the lines of her book. I thought my ultimate victory would be the moment the police placed the handcuffs on Tyrone. I thought it would be the exact second Connor Sterling walked out of the ballroom, leaving Chantel sobbing on the marble floor. But the true resolution is not found in their destruction. It is found right here in the quiet, unshakable peace of this sunlit room. The ultimate revenge was never about exposing their lies or proving my worth to a family that was fundamentally incapable of loving me. It was about recognizing my own absolute power. It was about realizing that I am the architect of my own reality. I built a fortress of success, wealth, and security with my own two hands, and I will never again allow anyone to infiltrate it. I will never let them diminish my accomplishments, weaponize my child, or dim my light to make their shadows appear larger. Maya looks up from her coloring book, flashing me a brilliant frosting-covered grin. I smile back, feeling the deep, resonant warmth of total freedom. The past is finally dead, and our future is brilliantly, undeniably ours. The most profound lesson from this story is that true peace requires the courage to walk away from toxic environments, even if they are disguised as family. For years, the protagonist endured manipulation, gaslighting, and blatant disrespect from the people who should have protected her. Her ultimate triumph wasn't just in exposing their financial fraud or ruining their social standing, it was in recognizing her own unshakable worth. She learned that blood does not excuse abuse. Real power is found in establishing ironclad boundaries, protecting your inner peace, and building a thriving, independent life far from their destructive reach. If you found strength in this story of overcoming toxic family dynamics, hit the like button, share your own experiences of setting boundaries in the comments below, and subscribe for more tales of ultimate empowerment and sweet revenge.